The Houston Texans are for sure going to the playoffs. They will host an opposing team in Super Wild Card Weekend. We know that much for sure. We don't know yet who they're going to play in that matchup. They have three potential opponents, and they could know exactly who they're playing by the end of tonight. And if they don't know tonight, they'll certainly find out tomorrow. Their game against the Tennessee Titans, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. They are stuck at the 4 spot. So who's going to be the 5 spot? Who are the Houston Texans going to host in their first playoff game? Let's go through the potential teams and how those teams end up in Houston at NRG Stadium. 3 potential teams that the Houston Texans can host. The Baltimore Ravens, which would be no fun considering the Ravens on Christmas Day handed a beatdown to the Houston Texans. The Pittsburgh Steelers, who were at NRG Stadium last year, and the Texans beat them. And the Los Angeles Chargers from the AFC West. Those are the 3 teams and the only 3 teams that the Texans can play in the 4-5 matchup in the AFC. 2 of those teams have their games today, Saturday. The Chargers play tomorrow against the Raiders. That could have no bearing depending on what happens today. Let's take a look at it here. The Cleveland Browns are at the Baltimore Ravens. The Cincinnati Bengals are in Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers, and the Chargers are on the road in Vegas to take on the Raiders. Let's go through the scenarios here and exactly who the Texans are playing and how they end up playing them. So the scariest one is Baltimore coming back to NRG Stadium. And though the Texans did something last year that was unexpected, suffered a beatdown at the hands of the Cleveland Browns and then handed a beatdown to the Browns just a few weeks later, I don't know that any of us would think they can do that to the Baltimore Ravens. So it'd be very scary to see the Ravens be coming to town in that 4-5 matchup. It's also highly unlikely that the Ravens are coming to town in that 4-5 matchup. That would require the Cleveland Browns, who are 20-point underdogs to the Baltimore Ravens, to pull a massive upset on Lamar Jackson and company. It would also require the Pittsburgh Steelers to beat the Cincinnati Bengals, and that would make sure that Baltimore is the team that the Texans end up playing in that 4-5 matchup. Again, this element here is the hard element to figure out that it would even be close to happening. The Browns are hapless and hopeless, going nowhere. That is super unlikely. So we'll go ahead and just make a very safe assumption that the Baltimore Ravens are going to beat the Cleveland Browns, and they are going to take care of their very much expected business in that matchup. That then means that the second game of Saturday matters the most to who the Texans are going to play. It's very simple at this point. Again, Baltimore's victory here means that a Steelers victory and Pittsburgh is coming to Houston in the 4-5 matchup. A Baltimore victory and a Bengals victory sets the Chargers up to be in the driver's seat to come to Houston. They would need to beat the Las Vegas Raiders, and then that would be a 4-5 Houston and Chargers matchup. Now, if the Chargers somehow, some way, lost the game to the Raiders after the Steelers lost to the Bengals, then it would still be Pittsburgh headed to town to take on the Houston Texans. The Steelers would be the team that the Texans end up facing in that matchup if you get these losses. Now, one more time here. Baltimore, a victory there, and a victory by Pittsburgh, and the Texans know who they're playing. They're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh has the tiebreaker over the Los Angeles Chargers by virtue of a head-to-head victory, and that gets them to Houston. If the two teams end up with the same record, that would be a tiebreaker, meaning that the Pittsburgh Steelers are headed to Houston. Hey, you want a free $50 to the best and easiest way to play daily fantasy, my friends at Prize Picks? Well, use the code Stoots when you get signed up in the link down below. Stick around till the end of the video, and we'll put together a Prize Picks entry together. So hang out till the end. See you then. Got all that? Now, I actually like the Steelers matchup a little bit more than the Chargers matchup for the Texans. I don't believe in Russell Wilson against this Texans defense. I don't believe that he can have the type of day necessary to pull off the upset of the Houston Texans. Now, does the Steelers defense scare the bejesus out of me? Absolutely. Why wouldn't it scare you? Cam Hayward on the interior of the defensive line, TJ Watt on the outside. That is a scary, scary situation for this Texans offensive line to try to block. Not to mention Minkah Fitzpatrick is very good in the secondary. The Steelers always have a very high floor from a defensive standpoint. That would be a very tough matchup for the Texans, but that Pittsburgh offense, you put Derek Stingley over on George Pickens. You trust the front seven to slow down the rushing attack. The rest of the secondary does their job. Russell Wilson has a tough day. Maybe you win a field goal fight with the Pittsburgh Steelers in a tough defensive matchup and a tough defensive battle between Houston and Pittsburgh. That's the ideal matchup for the Texans of these three opponents. We already know Baltimore would be a disaster for the Texans, and then the Chargers would be tougher than the Pittsburgh Steelers. By virtue of Justin Herbert is just much better than Russell Wilson. Herbert's got the ability on any given game day to be one of the best quarterbacks in all of football. That's going to be tough to slow down if you're the Houston Texans. Now, lightly weaponized is the Chargers offense. There's not a ton that you need to be worried about. Ladd McConkey is their best wide receiver, so you could drop Derek Stingley on him and then hope that Quentin Johnston or Josh Palmer or whatever else the Chargers are running out there from a pass catching standpoint doesn't beat you, and you'd feel pretty confident about that. I like the Chargers rushing attack more than I like the Pittsburgh rushing attack as well. J.K. Dobbins has had a resurgent year. If it wasn't for Sam Darnold, Dobbins might have won comeback player of the year after his multiple injuries in Baltimore seemingly derailed his career. He got back on track with the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh. They also got Gus Edwards, a couple of other guys that they trust on their rushing attack. And then something else the Chargers have that the Steelers don't have, they have elite bookends on their offensive line. Joe Alt, the rookie, and Rashawn Slater at the tackle spot for the Chargers, that would be the best tackle duo, maybe outside of Minnesota. It'd be the best tackle duo that the Texans have had to rush against all season long. So you factor in elite opposition for Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, the much better quarterback, a little bit deeper in the rushing attack. And the next thing you know, the Chargers sort of look like a scarier offense to go against. And that defense is nothing to sneeze at. Derwin James is very good. He's a game changer in the secondary for them. And then Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, though a little bit older, still have pass rush prowess and still could be a headache for the Houston Texans offense to have to deal with. So it'd be much better to face the Pittsburgh Steelers than the Los Angeles Chargers. How do you get to the Steelers matchup? Pop quiz. Do you remember? A Baltimore victory and a Pittsburgh victory today? That locks in the Pittsburgh Steelers for the Texans in the 4-5 matchup in Wild Card Weekend. Forgive me. Super Wild Card Weekend, the opening weekend of the NFL slate, and it presents a precarious situation for Texans fans because there could be quite a few Steelers fans in the stands. But if Pittsburgh doesn't take care of their business and the Chargers do, then Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, and company, they'll be headed to Houston, and there'll be far less Chargers fans in the stands if LA gets the nod instead of Pittsburgh. What say you? You want to see Pittsburgh or you want to see the Chargers? Let me know in the comment section down below on your way down there. Throw me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to subscribe to the SNL channel. Myself and Landry Locker from the Locker Room, we get together and do a ton of Texan stuff there as well, so you don't want to miss out on that. And, of course, I told you we'd get you some prize picks entries. We'll do that at the end of this video, so don't miss out on that. Appreciate you watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. I can't wait until we talk Texans again soon. Prize Picks, the best and easiest way to play daily fantasy. $50 headed your way when you play your first 5. Use my code Stoots when you get signed up. STOOTS, link in the description. down below. Play that first 5. You don't even have to win. Play that first 5. Get $50 headed your way thanks to my friends at Prize Picks. Again, they're the best and easiest when it comes to a daily fantasy. Let's put together a Prize Picks entry. All you're doing is guessing more or less on predicted stats. You hit the little calendar right here, and you can put together those Saturday matchups for you. Look at all the different sports you want to dabble in. I like football mostly, and I like to keep it all in the same day, but you can go across multiple days, multiple sports. It's fantastic. So the Ravens and the Cleveland Browns, I like more than half a rushing touchdown for Derrick Henry. I also like how well Mark Andrews has been playing recently. These two getting into the end zone feels pretty safe, pretty solid. You know what else feels pretty safe is Joe Burrow, how well he's been playing. 1.5 passing touchdowns. We're definitely going more on that for Joe Burrow, and a field goal situation. The Steelers love to kick field goals. Doesn't matter if they're winning, losing, getting ready to maybe tie a game. Chris Boswell can be trusted more than 1.5 field goals made. So a couple of Ravens touchdowns, Joe Burrow doing what Joe Burrow does, and a couple of Pittsburgh field goals at $5 wins us 25 if we get all the pieces correct. And if we flex play it, we can still get 3 of the 4 correct and win. Let's go with the power play, though. All 4 correct, 7 times our entry. If we get it right, you can play your first 5 just like that right there on Prize Picks. And it doesn't matter if you win or you lose. If that's your first 5 and you use the code STOOTS, STOOTS, when you get signed up, you're going to have $50 headed your way thanks to my friends at Prize Picks. It really is the best and easiest way to play daily fantasy. Get signed up, link in the description down below, and hang out with my friends at Prize Picks.